A new galaxy, a new home. Your future is clouded, your destiny unclear. Life or death, war or peace. Embrace the fate of stars before you. Starpoint Gemini Warlords. Their galaxy. Your terms.
And what's up everyone, welcome to twitch.tv/opnoobsonline, the official Twitch channel for the website opnoobs.com. I am delighted today, and I can't say it any better, delighted to have a very good friend of ours, somebody we've known since we launched the site. Not you, Oriana, even though thanks for being on the show. Zeno, Žokalj. Zeno I want to say this right, you're the community and PR manager for Little Green Man Games. You have been spearheading their early access on Steam and so many other things. You're essentially the connecting dot between the developers and the Steam community, who are very much at the heart, not just of consuming Starpoint Gemini, the franchise. I think we can say the franchise now. Even though you are not a AAA studio, you are an indie game. We're just talking about that before the show. I'll stop here. Zeno, how you doing?
Thank you, fine, and thank you for having me here again. I mean, this is like 4th or 5th time I'm on OPN show. So yeah, it's always nice to come here.
And I feel like both you and I have improved in terms of the setup. We've got better cams, better microphones. We're gearing up to go pro.
I still do have same posters.
Yes.
I need to update my games. I mean, Far Cry 5 was announced, and Starpoint Gemini Warlords for Xbox, not 2 anymore. So yeah.
It's very true. I'm also accompanied by Oriana, who you just saw on the last dev talk we just hosted about, I'd say, an hour ago. Black the Fall, an amazing game. Zeno, you were commenting on it in the Skype chat. I was so floored when I saw that game. The interview will be up on the site shortly, so if you're in the Twitch chat, come back on the site and check it out every now and then. It's a beautiful game that was kind of picked up from the indie scene by a giant like Square Enix. And we hope we wish them the best. It is kind of strange, Zeno, and I don't know if you'll agree with that, but I feel like the more the industry advances, the smaller the gap between indie and AAA. In terms of visuals for your game, for example, for Starpoint Gemini Warlords, you look at Starpoint Gemini, I don't know if you can even see Starpoint Gemini 1 on Steam. Is it on the store page?
Yeah, it is. It is.
It is, right? Okay, sorry about that.
With I think mostly negative reviews. Then we have Starpoint Gemini 2, which is mostly positive, and now we have Warlords, which is very positive.
Ever more so
positive.
It's
on 80%. So it seems that we are progressing, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, you look at the production quality between what you did when you guys got started. What was it? 5 years ago? 6 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was released in 2010. It was Starpoint Gemini 1, so
not that long.
Even longer, yeah.
Yeah, but 6 years, to see how far you've come in 6 years as a studio and the stuff that you're releasing now. You were just telling me off stage that some people are criticizing your game for being AAA, and you know the impression that comes off, and I can tell, even though you know a lot of people will say, well, it's a space game, it's easy to make space games look good. There is that kind of criticism out there. Yours look especially good, honestly, like and all the artwork that's being done on the game, in the cutscenes, but also in the visuals. When you send us guys the press kits, I'm always blown away by those 4K resolutions of space that you send us away, the artwork. It's really hats off to the whole team. a little green man game and the talent that they have in developing this. So you've been long established in the space scene, and Ariana has some great questions for you that John Fentiman put together. Thank you, John, for taking the time to make those. But I do kind of want to start up by saying first and foremost that we had an interview with you just a year ago when you launched. Sorry, I had nothing to do with it. When you launched the game in early access, and it's been almost, I think, a little bit more than a year now, and I kind of want to just touch on that and get your first impressions on how early access has been, and not Warlords isolated from your other games, but in comparison of your previous titles. How has early access evolved, and how has that kind of shaped your experience with the third in the series?
Well, first of all, early access actually changed, and it changed a lot since we started Starpoint Gemini 2 in early access, and that was back in 2013. Yeah, and it actually changed a lot because first of all, there are many more games entering early access today than back then, when we were one of the pioneers and one of the first developer teams that entered the early access program when Steam released it. Second problem is that many teams failed early access. Failed in terms of not updating the game regularly, or just ditching the whole project at some point, just wrapping the 1.0 version and said to people, well, that's it, we are done. And people generally lost faith in early access. People approach early access games today with a lot of skepticism, and you don't start from zero, you start from negative. You first have to make them believe you that you will finish the project, and that you are here for them, and that you will listen to them, and that the project will eventually be tailored to their suggestions and ideas. When you do that, then that's when you start from zero. Now you do need to start working on a game, developing patches, and showing those promises you gave them when you first entered early access.
I'm glad you're saying this, because I remember distinctively last year when we did this dev talk, just to get your first impressions of early access, you were kind of thrown off by the opening stages of Warlords coming out in early access, almost as if it felt like a different experience than what you had experienced with the second one. How are you a year later? Have you moved away from those initial feelings?
Well, of course, because the problem there was when we first started early access with SPG2, with Starpoint Gemini 2, you needed a proof of concept, and people were just here to say, hey, I like your idea and I will support you, now do something with it. Today, if you come to early access with a game that is not at least 70 to 80% finished, you just get burned, because Steam early access as a program, it's changed. Of course, that's mostly because of the teams that failed to deliver games during early access. So nobody just want to back up a project that is just a proof of concept, because there's really no guarantees it will ever become anything more than that. So I do understand how early access works today. And I remember talking on Reboot Develop, not this year, last year, we had Brian Fargo on Reboot Develop, and he was just entering early access with Torment, Tides of Numenera.
Yes.
And we were talking about early access, and he was asking what's my experience in early access, about players, about intervals for updating the game and stuff like that. So it's changed. It really changed from Starpoint Gemini 2. It changed to early access in Warlords, and it's even more different now. because we would have to have a different approach if we entered early access today with Warlords, not a year ago. So it's just changing and changing and changing. So,
but you still managed to get what you wanted from in terms of the creative process and what gamers want.
Yes, definitely, because our community was there for us. We had a solid fan base from Starpoint Gemini 2, and I mean the whole Warlords was a community-driven project. So that's what we talked about a year ago. So Warlords is basically everything that we wanted to put in SPG2 and we couldn't due to technical limitations of the engine, because the game was already wrapped up and finished, and breaking it all apart to implement huge new features or game mechanics was impossible. So we said, okay, we will do a spin-off game and we will try to do everything that you guys wanted in SPG2. And I'm talking about post-release suggestions of SPG2, not early access. We tried to implement as many early access suggestions that we could. But post-release, there were new people and the game was selling well, and those new people had their ideas, which were excellent.
Yeah.
But it was a bit too late to make the universe much bigger. So I mean, we did that for Warlords, so now it's 9 times bigger. So
you're starting to have a community that's really well entrenched, and I'm sure you also have newcomers. So they must come, you know, those two pools of gamers must come up with very different perspective on the game itself and where they want to take it. Would you say that having a pool of newcomers that are getting into this game, probably never played Starpoint Gemini 2, bring kind of a breath of fresh air into game development? Do they bring original ideas, or do you find that it's actually the community that's been entrenched in the franchise that's a lot more effective in planning for the future of the series?
Well, I have to say both. Because our veteran community members are basically space gamers from 1980s. So those people know space games inside out. Yeah, they never stopped. So they gave us fantastic suggestions for laying out the groundwork. And new members, new players are actually players that maybe started space gaming a year or 3 years ago, but are usually younger players, but they still are very valuable because they gave some fresh perspective, some new ideas. That's why we had to do Warlords, because we did have, we had that groundwork laying community of veterans during early access of SPG2, but post-release we had new players and younger players and new fresh concepts, ideas. So it was impossible at that time to put it in SPG2, so we said, okay, we'll do Warlords. So we just took all of those ideas now and tried to put them in Warlords, and that's why Warlords is unique, because it's not a 4X game, and it's not a strategy game, and it's not just a tactical combat simulator, but it has a blend of all those genres, and that makes it different from other games on the market that are excellent, but they're excellent at what they do. So you have Endless Space 2, which is excellent, released a short while ago, a few days ago. But it's a 4X, it's a full-blown 4X game.
Right.
We are not. So we are not direct competition to Endless Space 2. We have to offer something that they don't have. And they have some things much more in-depth than us. So, I mean, there's no reason not to play and love both of those games.
And I think in many ways, what you're talking about really points to the question of why do people enjoy space games? You know, do they come for the environment? Do they come from the atmosphere? Do they come for the simulation aspect, the strategic component, the 4X based gameplay? Do they come for the action? I think my personal take is, I think space as a whole, as an environment, drags gamers into, at least we're curious to see what's in it. There's something sexy about space, period. But then when you get into space games, it's funny because my experience myself as a player, not as an interviewer, really as a player, I always find that it's the balance of simulation, and I guess I'm patting your back here, because I always find like I need the strategic elements to be in the game, and I also need the action. If you're gonna alienate me one way or the other, I'm not really going to get into it. And I feel like Starpoint gets that, understands that it's, you know, players like the strategy, but they also like the action, and that's why they're drawn to space. It's not just the unknown. My next question, Zeno, and then Ariana, I'll get to you. And Ariana, I want to hear about your first impressions too, because you're new to the series, and then I'll let you ask your question. But I remember when we covered Starpoint Gemini 2, maybe 2 years ago or something like that. You stopped for a second, and I think that was our the first time we met. You stopped and you said one of the great things about the Starpoint Gemini universe is that it's paced in a way that paced in a way that very few games actually deliver. And you have these long sequences where you move from one point to another, and you can do whatever you need to do even in real life during those times, but it's important to the experience. That you want to get pulled in and out of the action, in and out of the intensity. Is this something we still find in Warlords, or have you guys adapted the game to be more bang 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 bang, triggering actions after the next one?
Well, we try to stay true to the series. So Starpoint Gemini Warlords, when you start the game, it's much more similar to Starpoint Gemini 2 than in the later stages of the game, because we didn't want to clutter the player with all the info and all the tutorials right away. So basically, you start Starpoint Gemini Warlords as Starpoint Gemini 2, as a captain in this new galaxy, trying to make a name for yourself, and expansion and strategy and conquering and epic battles. It all comes slowly as you progress through the game, as you unlock new modules on your headquarters, which actually unlock new features for the game. So we are still trying to be true to Starpoint Gemini 2 tactical combat, and we improved on it, like in boarding and capturing ships and stuff like that. We actually improved those mechanics, also based on community suggestions. But yes, at the later stages, it looks less like Starpoint Gemini 2, and it starts looking more like something completely new.
That's smart. Yeah,
but even at the later stages, you are still able to engage in any battle that is currently in space. So you can send your fleet to conquer a territory, and you don't need to do any input by yourself. But you can, if you want, you can just hyperspace jump into that battle and just try to turn the tide if it's not going well for your fleet. So basically, we were just improving and expanding on Starpoint Gemini 2. We were not replacing the feel of the game.
Yeah, and it's a fine balance to walk to keep your culture, to keep your identity, and at the same time to get the franchise to evolve in a new direction. And I'm sure that was an act of balance of the developers, of the storytellers, of the entire crew. Ariana, I'm curious to hear your first thoughts about the game. You jumped into Starpoint knowing you were going to have this interview with Zeno, but yourself as a gamer, what are your first thoughts? And feel free to take that and move into the question sample that you have.
Sure. Well, 4X games are not my biggest thing, but I really enjoyed this one. As you said, it's not necessarily in that 4X genre, so it was really nice. You start out with your storyline and get things going that way, and then you build upon that. And you do get a good bit in the beginning, but you do build on it as you go through. But one thing I really love that you guys have done, you listen to all this input from your players. That is the best thing, that you've grown your game through that. But how in the world, how do you go through all that information, all the ideas and the suggestions that the community gives you? How do you decide what goes into the game from that?
It's all Zeno.
Well, at first we got lost in all those suggestions. That's true, and I'm being honest here. But then we decided to write them all down, and we saw which suggestions were repeated over and over again. And few things were obvious. Players wanted us to give them mechanics that will allow them to have more lasting effect of victories they achieve, and that was not the case in Starpoint Gemini 2. Of course, a blend of 4X elements were the obvious answer. When that was decided, we went back to suggestions list and selected all ideas that were compatible with this new 4X/sim concept, and there were a lot of them. And final choices were made based on how much time would such features take to be developed and implemented in the game, because as an indie team, we do have to think about that too.
Right, right. And that's really good. And you touched on about the reasonable time limit, because everybody just wants the game. They want everything in there so quickly they can play it. So you're using your own proprietary game engine, right? The Whale engine. Did that help you or hurt you or in implementing the community's vision for the game? Did you have to make many adaptations to the engine itself? What was your process on that?
Well, we had, with our engine, we had some good experiences and some bad ones, of course. I mean, sometimes it helped a lot, because if we had to create some never-seen feature, it was easier to do because we knew the soul of this engine and what it can do. On other occasions, there are feature ideas that demanded core changes in the engine, and some of those features then had to be ditched because in the middle of development process, it is not wise to go back and make havoc in core engine. And our engine is awesome, but it isn't Crytek, and it does have some limitations.
Right. So with the many different features that you have coming from all over the place, how did you ensure that the game feel like it was a single unified world in that?
We ensured nothing really. I mean, all features that were possible to make and implement into the base game were done at some point. Then through testing, we observed how it actually works. Some systems were completely changed after that as a result of community feedback, like for example, skill system that was changed 3 times and completely changed from the first April last year. Skills were something that was completely different than skills today.
What was
the way they were?
Yeah, well, if I can interrupt you, what was the main complaint that had you guys overhaul the entire thing?
Well, many people said that they didn't like it in SPG2, and they thought that this new skill system is pretty much similar to that, and they had same problems with them. So we basically opened discussion, talked with them at length, and we got some really nice ideas how to work on those skills, how to make those skill trees seem more logical, and well, basically we, as I said, changed it 3 times, and we're still not entirely satisfied by it, and we will still probably update it and improve it as new update will come. Well, but some of those systems that we wanted and that looked good on paper at the beginning had to be removed. I mean, despite them looking good on the paper at the beginning. So it's a process that it's constantly evolving and changing through development when you have early access game. So we're talking about early access, where you have regular communications with your players, and if you're listening to them, of course. If you're not listening to them, then it's not a problem. We have our production plan, we're sticking to it, and you guys can write what you want. But we don't work like that. We never work like that. So it's a constantly changing plan.
Well, that's good, because that's what I was wondering. As the gameplay evolves over that long period of playing, so you took the steps, you wanted to make sure the gameplay progression felt fluid and natural along with that. Correct? And how are you going about with that, with those suggestions? Like you said, with the skill trees and such.
Yeah, well, we went through detailed testing with our veteran testers, that are people that really know SPG2 from inside out and are with us for a long time now. But we also took some new players that never played the game before, because we needed that, as I mentioned before, that fresh perspective. And that progression was changed again and again. I mean, it's quite okay now, and we are still not entirely satisfied with it. And as I said, it will undergo further changes. But one trick we did is we gave we gave players a glimpse of fully upgraded headquarters and a better ship, and then we put them back into the smallest ship and with the basic headquarters. The point
That's
was
so
to show them. Yeah, but the point was, it is, I admit it, but the point was to show them how later stages of gameplay will look like, but at the same time not to overwhelm them with too many things at once, because it's a complex game. And as the game progresses, gameplay definitely changes, and new features are unlocking. That strategy 4X element is slowly kicking in, and that was the idea.
It's a good way to bring them in easy and gentle, and to show off your game. Now I've got a question that came from
just a quick segue to that. How many hours would you say, Zeno, is needed to truly understand Starpoint Gemini Warlords, to really come to master it? Its key mechanics, at least.
Well, it's hard to estimate that, because you have players that come from space games, that come from some other genres and just want to try the space game. I think that after Starpoint Gemini Warlord tutorial, the game is pretty easy to learn, and the same, I was telling the same for Starpoint Gemini 2. The game is easy to learn. I mean, you have ASD for controls, and some cycling, some views and mouse. But to master it and to really find a perfect build for your class and for your skill points and perks points, and perfect loadout of weapons for your ship, or perfect fleet. So do you need more smaller ships that are more agile and faster, or more bigger ships? So it's easy to learn but hard to master, and it takes time. I would say, you asked me about hours. I don't know. I mean, to just get into the game after a tutorial, I mean, you may need hour to 3 hours to really get into the game, but later stages will still slowly teaching you new stuff, new features as they unlock.
Hang on, Fred. I just see in the chat that EOLIN TV, 160 hours already
on the clock.
So you go. Yeah.
No, but Starpoint Gemini 2, I remember we were talking about that too. You told me people have hundreds, if not
three or 4,000 hours.
Yeah.
Were some records on our SPG2 Steam forums.
And usually, I'm sorry, but to me that's an amazing achievement, considering you're not an online game. Starpoint Gemini is an offline game, and
exclusively single-player game. Yeah,
you should pride yourself in that, I think, because at the end of the day, sometimes, at least myself, when I hear a game is played offline, it's a single-player experience, I'm gonna think, you know, this game could be amazing, but it could be amazing, it's gonna fit in a small box. It's not gonna have, you know, the depth of gameplay, in terms of length, in terms of quantity, that a game, anything ranging from Call of Duty, sorry for quoting that, all the way to World of Warcraft. You know, the moment you say online, multiplayer, RPG elements, and it's played online, then yeah, most of your player base are going to expect, it's even more than want, they're going to expect an experience that spreads not in hundreds of hours, but in thousands of hours. Not so much in, you know, single player games. Single player games tend to have kind of a pathway to an end. And the end is anything between 12 hours to 60 hours. 100 hours is considered massive. You guys spread in the thousands. Starpoint Gemini is a series in which players get lost for thousands of hours without the need for the internet. And to me, you know, that's 2 thumbs up on being able to create a universe that will pull someone in without ever having some type of social interaction with NPCs, I guess, in this case.
Well, you know, I think that partly is because we offer a sandbox experience. So the campaign is not the end of the game. It's just a new beginning. You finish some story, you are someone in that universe, and now your path is open to do greater things and to really influence the universe you live in. But also RPG elements is something that people, I mean, RPG gamers tend to spend more hours in their genre than, of course, FPS players, because I mean, not a multiplayer component, of course. You can spend thousands of hours in Call of Duty, but just for Battlefield or Call of Duty campaign, you will be over in 5 to 15 hours, and that's it. If we just look at the single player component.
Exactly.
But we do have people that have thousands of hours in the game, but so does Skyrim, so does Dragon Age, so does Mass Effect, or some games that people really can immerse themselves in and have that RPG element.
Yeah, because of that, some of the people, your followers, they want to know about co-op. I want to give you a chance to talk about that a minute. Why no co-op yet?
Currently, to be honest, it's just it was too much to chew on at this point, because we do have a modding in a modding community, and our game is completely open. So anyone who is I'm not gonna say skilled in coding or scripting. Anyone who can write or read. But literally can modify Starpoint Gemini game, and that's beautiful, because people can do a lot of cool things in the way of modding the game. But that would also be a problem with cheating, because I gotcha. You can just open your save game and say, okay, I'm Master of the Universe. I mean, it's not Master of the Universe 1 or 0 option, but you can modify your minerals or resources and basically make yourself invulnerable.
And you guys don't try to protect the game from that?
Well, it's a single player game, so if somebody wants to ruin their experience by cheating, let's say cheating in the game, because they're only cheating themselves. More modding. I mean, that's their choice. I mean,
do you often see that behavior?
Not as much as I expected, I would say.
Okay.
Because I don't know, people are usually doing mods that add new ships, change music for their favorite games, or implement some ship models from other popular franchises and stuff like that. Cheating mods are not that high on our workshop list. I mean, they are there, of course, but they're not as high as...
But they're not necessary in this game, though. Really, they're not. The modding for the ships and designs are I would think, the thing you want to do. You don't need the mod to cheat in this game as the gameplay goes. You've given players the chance for quests and things like that to really get themselves filled up in this game easy enough on that. Another player question I have is... I know that some people were talking about in SPG2, they want to know if you'll be able to fly a single ship and do whatever they feel like with it. Or are they going to need to have these fleets to be competitive later on in the game?
They can always fly by themselves. I mean, they would be missing on plenty of content if they choose not to develop their fleets and not to conquer parts of the universe. But we already have some strange approaches to the game. I mean, we have a guy on forums, and I was reading that post the other day, who basically posted a screenshot. He did not conquer anyone, but the whole galaxy. But the whole galaxy is his friend. Every faction in the universe is his friend, and they're sending him. And when you have those other factions as friends, they do send you gifts in terms of resources, which you need to build more ships and make larger fleets. So you have approach. So basically, we have a guy who didn't need to use violence to.
How surprised were you guys by that guy? Like, how was the development studio? How did the development studio react to what this guy did? Did you anticipate that? Did you even think that was feasible?
No. I think that we all know that you can make some friends or some enemies and balance with diplomacy or violence among those factions. But we didn't expect someone to actually befriend the whole galaxy in the way that they just now give them resources. And he lives in peace. And usually you need to conquer and expand to get resources from the conquered areas, but you can also be friends with people and get some of the resources for free. We didn't actually expect that someone will do that approach that early after release, and it was interesting thing to see. I mean, that just shows us that 10 of us or 20 of us in the team are not as creative as the whole community can be creative. So that's why we want to hear their input, and that's why we still have suggestions part on the forum, even post-release, and reading that and talking to people about new ideas for upcoming patches or DLCs. Yes,
I got you. So you led right into what my next question was going to be. Again, this is straight from your Steam questions there, but the question was, will there be a way to see what can be gained from being allied with each faction? So obviously that can happen now, and people can get those things, the gifts you were talking about, and get resources. So is this something you're going to maybe work on more? This is just a player that found this little thing and, hey, congratulations to you? Or is this another part of your game that you might want to explore deeper?
Well, it all depends. I mean, currently we are focused on doing the Xbox version and doing working on DLC for Warlords already. But we are paying attention to forums, of course, and talking to people. And well, if more people come with those kind of ideas and those approaches to the game, well, we should find, it's on us to find a way to reward them in some way. I mean, I don't think that we have achievement for conquer the galaxy by befriending everyone. So that's something that I didn't expect. So it's nice to see our game in a light that even we didn't see it at the time.
And do you find that the game is fairly balanced in terms of, you were talking about the fact that you guys overhauled the talent tree, for example, 2 times during development. I'm sure the studio and the experts at the game, the guys who build the games, have a very specific understanding of what type of combinations work, what doesn't, you know, what they prefer to play. But would you say that at the end of the day, it's whatever path you undertake in Starpoint Gemini Warlord, there is no best path. This is very much the product of your creativity and imagination, and kind of every approach is a worthy one. And by extension, does the Steam community surprise you? Even, I guess you just kind of said they did with this guy who went full-on diplomacy, but even in the builds and in the builds that they come up with, the guides that they're probably putting forward on Steam discussions, are you guys finding more creativity in Warlords through your fan base than you thought you had learned to master over the development stage?
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, as long as we have a community like this, we will never run out of fresh ideas, fresh new suggestions. Sometimes those suggestions include improving some parts of our game, or taking existing feature and getting the idea how to make it work even better. But they're also constantly and flow of new ideas or fresh ideas or things that we may not be able to maybe even implement in Starpoint Gemini Warlords, but is definitely on our in our heads for some future project. So as long as we have community that is kind, mature, and creative as we have now, I'm not afraid that we will have a constant flow of new ideas, and even when we get old and senile, I think that we will still have people that will help us when we fail in, I don't know, thinking about something new and fresh.
Ariana, you have more?
Yeah, I was going to ask, so how has Little Green Man been able to make sure that the early access periods don't go on for too long, so it's not like dragged out, and ensure that your fully released product is, high quality, obviously, looking at it and already, you're getting compared to AAA games, so you are already there. But how are you going to ensure that you have feature-rich and are relatively few bugs in your game when you release?
Well, we did this simply by trying to avoid mistakes from Starpoint Gemini 2 early access. I mean, as I said, we are not the smartest guys on earth, and we did a ton of mistakes, some huge ones in Starpoint Gemini 2 early access, but we try to do our best not to repeat them again in Warlords early access. But still, this process was much harder because early access is now much harder and very different than before and more complicated. So most important part was that we stopped shoveling features in the game earlier this time. We did that until 2 days prior to release in SPG2, so we had a broken game on release and there were some problems. Sorry. We stopped doing shoveling content in the game much earlier this time and took more time to put all screws into place and to get feedback and beta testing and final fixes to make the game as stable as it can be on release. And of course, we had more ideas to put in the game, but those will find its way in subsequent post-release DLCs.
Well, that's fabulous. So with your previous experience, that's why you are doing so well now in your early access. Why do you think so many studios, maybe they don't have the experience? Why do they have so many trouble with their long early access periods?
Well, first of all, I think once you enter early access, many things change. Workload increases multiple times. You have to supply updates and keep closing public versions constantly. And also your fixed production plan is, if I may say so, worth shit after that. Because that plan will be constantly changing due to community feedback, as I mentioned earlier. And it's fun and interesting process. And in the end, it leads to a bigger and better game. But it takes huge effort and infrastructure to keep it all running smoothly and work properly. Many teams are simply overwhelmed by that, and they just get lost in the endless planning and replanning during that early access. I think that's the reason.
Also, I also had a question about the launch date. Do you guys kind of fix that in advance, not knowing that your game is going to be ready or not, or do you keep the launch date for a last minute type of thing, where when it's ready type of mentality?
Not last minute, but I would say that it was like 2.5 months prior to release that we knew when the release is gonna be, because you do need some time, as I said, and infrastructure and everything, that you need to plan some things ahead. Yeah, we knew. We didn't know in April last year. Last April, we didn't know the exact date or even month of release. We knew that about 2 months prior to release, the exact time of release.
If you were going to be a little bit critical about the development, what would you say was the toughest part of developing the game?
And sorry, I have to say, Mario is writing in chat. Yeah, we changed launch date a few times, but okay. It was not like a 6 month span or something like that. It was like, will it be summer, or will it be May, or maybe June? But yeah, we have some other sales in June. So yeah, you do juggle with the dates, but it was about 2 months ago when we were relatively sure that this will be the date.
I mean, a full year, and even a little bit longer than that in early access, I think is a good time. It seems like the right amount of time for me. Anything more than that gets kind of dragged on, and you need to move on to the DLCs eventually.
Well, the thing is that we don't look at this at like it's the end. Right. It's not the end. It's just the start. This is actually, the idea was to have just a stable game full of features, but not all features. So, as we were talking prior to this live stream, Starpoint Gemini Warlords is basically a huge sandbox platform for a long-term project and a long-term project. So there will be many fixes, tweaks, rebalancing. We mentioned the rebalancing. I'm still not satisfied by it, and part of community is still not satisfied by it. So we will rebalance the game further. We will release updates and expansions via DLCs. And some of those DLCs will be more technical in nature, like adding completely new features or modifying existing ones based on community feedback. While others will be pure content DLCs, and I'm talking about new ships, classes, stations, storylines, missions, maybe even maps. We were discussing maps.
This is ambitious, Zeno.
Making layered maps is very ambitious, but it's something that we're just thinking about. Currently, there are no promises about maps, but definitely there will be new classes, ships, and plenty of new content. So this is not the end of the game on release day. It's just the beginning of something.
This is a game that the studio is going to ride on for the next couple years, almost?
Well, I'm not sure. We will see how it goes, because we will not... I mean, first DLC, and as I told you, this will be exclusive. First DLC is coming out in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Thank you for making that an exclusive of Noobs. Thank you, Zeno.
2 or 3 weeks. And it will be... we still didn't decide on the name yet. Maybe Mario did, so he can write in the chat. But it's either a Deadly Dozen, or Most Wanted, and it will include bounty hunting mechanic, and also it will include bounty heroes that you will be able to hunt. And unlike Starpoint Gemini 2, they will not be just a portrait and 3 sentences. They will have their background story, and you will be able to even make them part of your fleet as your war masters, not just and necessarily just kill them and collect the bounty. So the pure bounty hunting mechanic will be a free update, and everybody who has the base game will get that mechanic. But those special bounties with their stories will be part of DLC that will be released later this month.
Okay.
So yeah, and the second DLC is already in our heads and being put on paper, and I won't say any details at this time about second DLC, but I can say that it will be out in late July. So it's also not far away.
Player's dream developer. Let me tell you, we love this. This is what we love. You're giving us the game.
Not to have too much time before two DLCs, because
gamers move fast.
Yeah, I'm talking to our community, and Darkom72, who is in chat right now. We talked prior to this, and I told him, come to the live stream. You will get some more info on the upcoming DLC, because he said, okay, I conquered the galaxy. What now?
He's ready.
Congrats, Darkom. You did it.
And start accumulating money for the things that will come. And he mentioned Titans. Currently, Titans is something that I cannot promise at this time, but it's something that we are discussing, and it's not out of the question to bring Titans from SPG back to the Warlords. Maybe they will not be called Titans, maybe they will be called something else, but it will.
Yes.
It should be something special. Also, one thing I wanted to say about Bounty DLC. People constantly requested some of Starpoint Gemini 2 ships which were part of the old Empire and are not available as ships in Warlords. They really like the designs, they really like the ships, so we said, okay, some of those heroes in the Bounty DLC will have those ships. Ships from Starpoint Gemini. So basically, you won't be able to get those ships in any other way than to kill those bounties and collect them and get their ships. So it's also something that was not planned at the beginning, but due to community requests, we decided, okay, let's give them completely, of course, remodeled with better textures, better effects, remodeled view of all ships.
It's, I mean, having the community kind of ask you to put stuff from the second one into the third one into your game is testament of a community that cares, I think, and a community that doesn't want to let go of the old stuff that they grew nostalgic on, and they want to see that evolve with the series. So yeah, it sounds like you. I'm
part of that community. Okay. So I told guys, let me do a mod, let me pull all the portraits from SPG2, I think there are 86 of them or something like that. Let me put it and just pack it as a free, of course, free mod for Starpoint Gemini Warlords. So people who would like to continue Warlords with the portrait from the old game can just activate that mod and choose their favorite character from Starpoint Gemini 2. So I'm part of that community, so of course I'm nostalgic, and that was also something that we did the first day. On the day one release of Warlords, you already had Starpoint Gemini 2 portraits, and now we are talking about ships that are much tougher, much harder to just transfer to the new game. And we want to do it properly. So those ships will be, as I said, remodeled and retextured, and will look cool for Warlords, and be in line with Warlords graphics, of course.
You are so excited about this game. I love your passion. I am just sitting here floored by how much you are enjoying your game. And I'll tell you, you really do. You're going to give those AAA companies a run for their money on this, really. So it's very exciting. Fred, I want to touch back on real quickly, because I don't want to get us off here. But
and I have two more, so yeah.
Okay, we were talking earlier about VR. I happen to be a really huge fan of VR, and I think it's fabulous. But I'm really curious. You've worked on VR before, right, Zeno?
Yeah.
So.
True.
How does this influence your design choices for Starpoint Gemini? Do you have anything? I mean, is this going to be something in the future for it?
Well, we were strongly considering before, but then so many market changes were at the time, the price of Oculus and Vive, and the initial problems and the controller support. So we basically had to put it on hold for the time being. But the most important thing in VR is not, as we talked prior to live stream, is not gameplay or story or sound or even graphics, in my opinion. It's user interface and HUD. Because you are in virtual reality. If those things are not intuitive and if they're hard to use, that really ruins the gameplay experience of any VR title, regardless of the quality of sound or music or even graphics. So we changed HUD and UI systems in our early build, because VR usability really demands some quite unique modifications. And as I said, at that time we didn't know and we were not sure which devices are available, at what cost, and what is popular, and most important, what actually works. Since then, since there were many sudden changes in the VR market, we were simply delayed by this. Now the situation is more clear, and I can say that we expect to resume work on VR version soon enough.
Good. That's exciting
That's interesting
to hear.
too. Yeah, it's
I mean, it's
interesting.
space. Space is meant to be VR. VR
It definitely is.
Definitely the perfect match for any space game. I mean, I was watching the other day on PS4, I was watching the live stream of Star Trek Bridge Crew. And
I saw that, yeah.
It looked amazing. Okay, it was very funny, it was hilarious, because there are still some glitches, and those four guys that were playing and were live on the stream were totally stoned and high. So it was like the worst Star Trek episode I have ever watched. I mean, Captain is trying to read the quest, but he just can't see what the quest. He doesn't understand the quest, and tactical officer is trying to
a mess.
Activate phasers, and that his virtual hand is just flapping everywhere, missing that phaser, and it was hilarious.
No targeting whatsoever.
Yeah, I was pissing myself laughing, but the concept is beautiful. I mean, you have 5 or 6, I'm not sure how many people it supports, but you have 5 or 6 players that are just playing something that were possibly only on watching on TV in the past. So you're part of that now. So VR is definitely the future, and
that also
space
sounds
is definitely the best match for VR.
That also that 5 to 6 people playing VR together. That also sounds like about $10,000 of hardware. in terms of
Yeah,
the cost
true,
to doing
true.
that. So
Unfortunately, that's also one of the things that we have to pay attention to and think about how many people would be interested in VR at this point. And if the reason is our game, which is good or bad for VR, or is maybe the reason the cost of hardware for having that experience. So I think that VR is the future, but currently the price is still holding many potential buyers.
but
a bit down.
I like that you also talk about the limitation, the technical limitations. I don't know if there are limitations or maybe just the difficulties that developers are having in adapting, you know, how they normally develop games with the UI, with the user interface that kind of drives the gamer into doing what needs to be done, being focused on the objectives, to like a space where you're essentially just wearing kind of a helmet. You've got some stuff in your hands, but you can't really put like information in front of the player's face, right? And you've kind,
well,
like
you can, but that's also the user interface thing. Because if you tried to play, I don't know, Elite Dangerous on Oculus or Vive, I had the pleasure. They really made fantastic user interface for VR, where you activate things and get information just by looking at the direction of the panels. They just jump up and give you all the information, but don't clutter the screen, because as soon as you turn your head around, it just goes back down.
But so you're confirming
brilliant.
You're confirming what I'm saying, that developers have to reinvent how we make, at least rethink how we process information to gamers. Definitely, because that's all about user experience. If the user is not feeling good while playing your game, he won't play your game, and that means that your game is bad. We were talking about Warcraft just a couple minutes ago. Imagine making a game like Warcraft, VR style, you know, where like, where do I put my stuff in my bag? Like, you're gonna get very lost very fast. It would be a nightmare, you know. How do I get to my tree? You kind of have to rethink everything, and maybe that explains why AAA studios haven't been so quick to catch up on the wave, on the technological wave that VR is. Because my biggest disappointment with VR personally is the fact that, you know, they pitched us this kind of revolution in technology as the next best thing in video gaming. It's gonna take immersion up a whole new level, and I kind of buy that, you know. I believe that's possible, and I see it happening. But then it launched, and all we got to see was actually a platform for small indie games to try out something new. It's not like, you know, EA, Activision. You talk about Star Trek, and I think actually EA is the first. I think, is Star Trek EA or Ubisoft? It's EA.
Ubisoft. It's Ubisoft.
It's Ubisoft. Yeah. Ubisoft are often actually the first to break barriers or try something new, despite all the criticism that they take from the gaming community. I would argue that Ubisoft is a little bit, pardon my French, they're a little bit ballsy in the stuff that they push for, and they try stuff.
I agree.
And I appreciate that about them. So I'm not surprised to see them as the first big studio to come out with VR stuff and say, we're going to push this technology, this could be huge. But everybody else kind of, you know, is very timid when it comes to VR. Like, nobody's...
well, even AAA teams. I mean, when Far Cry 4 first came out, everybody was asking us on forums, will Starpoint Gemini Warlords be VR? We couldn't... confirmed that at the time, because even Ubisoft with Far Cry 4 did not make a VR version of the game. And I mean, what better game to enjoy VR than Far Cry, since Chris's first Far Cry to this day. I mean, the beautiful scenery, a living world, animals and everything.
The heights.
And even they did not release a VR version of Far Cry 4, because the market was changing and nobody knew at the time what will come up on the top. Will it be Vive or Oculus or something else? And at what price? And will the price be, let's say, low enough for the mainstream to take over the VR? And it wasn't at the time, and it's still not.
Yeah. No, and I think that's part of what's hurting it right now. Not just the gaming stuff, like you were talking about, Fred, and the small huts, you know, having that But I think it's the price point that's hurting them also.
Yeah.
They're not coming down. They're not showing any discounts for everybody yet. And people are kind of just like, I can wait. So I can understand that.
Yeah. And then you have the question, should I make the game for those few people that have VR? And when I say few, I know
it's a
there
tough
are
question.
not few of them, there are many of them, but compared to the complete gaming populations, they're just a small part. And spending time, money, and manpower on making the whole, let's say, almost whole new game, because you have to reinvent the half of the game for that small part of current market, while at the same time you could be doing fantastic content updates for the majority of your gamers.
Yeah.
When we have to wait that, it's always a kind of well, let's do more content for all the I mean, SPG2 was recently on promotion, and it was free for 2 days prior to Warlord's release. And now I have to say that we have over 1 million people in SPG2 base.
Jeez.
Wow,
I know.
Seriously?
I not every one of them is SPG2 fan. They're just
but
fans
they picked
of
it up.
stuff.
Yeah, and
But
You're
they
right.
picked it
But
up
that's a great way
and
to get new players in your game. Absolutely.
congrats, Zeno. That's a massive number. That's not a number to reckon with.
When we started SPG2, and we had like 20 to 30,000 people at the start.
Still good.
And now think of it that we have a base of 1 million people in that community. That's wow.
Yeah. Ariana, you have anything else? Because
I think you have.
I've got 2 more.
Everything. Go for it. Go for it.
I've got my closing questions that I always like to ask. The first one is the critical one. Is, well, you know, what do you guys regret in developing Starpoint Gemini Warlords? What do you think you would have done differently? The trickiest part of game development.
Well, I don't know. From my aspect as a gamer and community manager in LGM, and the guy who is on the edge of line, I mean, I'm doing some videos, trailers like that one that you showed at the beginning. I'm not in the core development part of developing the game, so Mario maybe can talk more about that on the chat, and can answer what the biggest issue or was during the development, or what he would do better, maybe even from the business point as CEO of the LGN Games. I don't know. I have to say that in SPG2 we had fantastic community. Now it's even better. There are no trolls on the forums. Even negative reviews are actually constructive criticism reviews, not just negative reviews for the sake of putting the thumbs down. So I can't complain about anything.
Yeah, you can't. Because
and as Mario said, and Mario is telling us in chat, I regret we don't have budget to keep developing another 2 years and make another 248.
Keep selling those games.
Yeah.
And the easier question, Zeno, what are you happiest about? What are you proudest of?
I'm happy about how this game turned out. I'm happy that I was in the process of watching this game evolve so much. I mean, when you just go to our YouTube channel, and I invite people to subscribe to our YouTube channel at this point, because we will have more upcoming videos for upcoming stuff. I definitely have to say that just watching how the game progressed was a rewarding experience, because I know how many things were cool back then in April last year, and I thought it was cool back then, and now seeing that we completely ditched some of those cool stuff and make even better ones, that's really nice to be a part of that, and to be part of involvement not only in the process of making the game, but also in the community that really stood with us all that time. I mean, just seeing people from SPG2 on our Warlords forum from early access day 1 to this day says something about that we did something good and something with that old game, and that we managed to keep the old fans. And that's something that really makes me happy and proud about this community.
And I think
That is good.
I think you can all be very proud of this achievement, if it's not impertinent to say. We're tough graders, you know, Zeno. We've become very tough graders on the website, due partly to the fact that our editor-in-chief wants to bring back some integrity to how what to expect out of what a 7 out of 10 means, what an 8 out of 10 means, and not just, you know, get a website with 9s and 10s just for the sensational effect. So we've kind of brought down, and you can even see if you go on Metacritic, you'll see like our website consistently scores stuff kind of below the norm, because we consider a 6 to be a decent game, and then 7 is a good game, 8 is a perfect game.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, because we gave you an 8, and by that we mean it's a perfect game
good.
in the genre. You're not revolutionizing a genre. You're not, that's a 9. You're not actually revolutionizing, what was it? I think revolutionizing a genre is a 9, and revolutionizing the gaming industry, the games like Doom, Myst, and all that, that's a 10. But an 8 is a game executed perfectly, in our opinion, meaning you've nailed it, you've mastered it, you've done beautifully, and they don't come often because of that. As you can imagine, there's always a flaw, which takes us to a 7, which is still a great game, and a 6, which is a good game. And we take a lot of heat, actually, online. We get a lot of nasty comments on Discuss every time we give a game a 6, and people call us like we're clickbaits, reviews and all that, but at the end of the day, it's because we're trying to kind of bring back the gravity towards the middle, and Starpoint getting an 8 out of 10 is a testament of a great job done. Hats off to the entire team. I want to before we close the show, I love if you just spell out the name of the guy, the team or the guys who do the visual design, the graphic design and the artwork, because I just think they deserve a mention because of the quality of the visuals in Starpoint Gemini.
I hope I won't forget anyone, but everything that you can see in the game is an effort from the whole team. I mean, from the engine that is fantastic, from our programmers to visual effects. Our Mihailo is working on that, for 3D models done by Mattia. I mean, there's so many people that I could easily forget. Kelle. I mean, this feels like an Academy Award speech.
No, but it should be.
I have those 2 minutes, and I should not forget, I don't know, the Academy or my mom.
We'll give you the Early Access of the Year award.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a team effort, and I mean, we did have some beta tester that came to our game and tested it, and then just left after they were done. But they also did their part. They showed us many bugs and things that then our programmers could just sort out and fix. I mean, it would be rude of me to forget Igor, who is doing videos and excellent the trailers on YouTube,
yes.
and of course guys who made it all possible with first game. I mean, Tomislav, Željko, Mario and Daniel, who started the company and had just a dream, no money, just a dream, and today they're feeding all of us, and we are doing this for a living. So
thank you, Mario.
Of course, I will forget somebody. I mean, Antonio, who is working on, who is lead console developer and is working on Xbox One version of Warlords, and
which I heard is not easy. I heard it's not easy to adapt a game from PC to consoles. It's actually quite tricky.
It's not. Yeah. It's not, because on PC you have your keyboard and you have your 100 buttons, and on console you are a bit limited to controller. So you do need to pull up some tricks from your sleeve to make it as usable and as friendly user experience as possible compared to PC version. So that's also kind of thing that you have to do for VR. So you basically have to reinvent controls and the way the game handles.
Yeah. Yeah, technology complicates everything, very much so. Even us, in something as simple as designing a website, you've got to think of every single screen you could possibly view the site on, and instead of building one company, you're finding yourself building 5. So technology doesn't make things easier. I also have
to say, I'm really proud of one thing. We got a review the other day, and they called us Mountain Blade in Space.
Nice.
Post Starpoint Gemini 2 release, we had so many community feedback and suggestions. Guys, this would be a super game if you could just make it like more like Mountain Blade. You have something here.
Oh, so it came. That's
and now
interesting.
being called in a critic review Mountain Blade in Space. It means that not only we listened to our community, but we managed to, at least to some point or to some degree, do that.
And that your community is smart, because it's a smart move.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? It's a smart move.
Definitely.
So,
That's terrific.
Zeno, thanks so much for taking the time to get on the Twitch. We hope to see more of you on the monthly shows and on all the good stuff that's coming up with OP Noobs. We've got quite an exciting summer around the corner. We're launching several championships. I see, by the way, you have the Chronicles t-shirt of our good friend in common.
I use every opportunity to promote during your streams or any other our friends from not just from Ironward but from Crow Team, from Game Pairs and other Croatian game dev teams.
Croatian is unbelievable, honestly. Like Croatia as a gaming market, the stuff that you guys are coming out with, and even more than Croatia, Eastern Europe as a whole. We were just talking about Black the Fall, guys.
About Black the Fall,
yeah, Eastern Europe too. Like we're gonna do, I really do think we're gonna put together a nice roundtable events about game development in Eastern Europe. And all the good stuff that's coming out of it.
I'm here, you know that.
Yes, and I'll invite you, of course, because I think there's so much. It's such a resourceful industry that's taking root in the region, and it's also a very cultural one. You guys definitely have your flair, your feel for games, even from one genre completely to the next. Chronicles, Ironward, and the Harvest team, they do a fantastic job, not just with Chronicles, but also in how they work with their communities. They're on Discord. If they're coming up with their next title that they successfully crowdfunded again, thanks to the community. We're excited to see what they got come up, and I can't disclose what we've got.
You have Hellion. Let's not forget Hellion, which is realistic physics first-person simulator in space, and it's from our friends from Serbia, from Zero Gravity, and it's fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, it's completely different type of game in comparison to our game or some other space game, because they have their unique part, we have our unique part, so there's really no reason why not mention it here too.
The region is emerging as a giant in the market, for sure, a giant in the industry, and it's exciting. Just hope, are you guys going to E3?
No, we are working on DLC now, and it's
too busy.
And we are covering forums. Release was just too close. We still have crowded forums, constant questions, and we're trying to cover everything, of course. Because,
well, when you guys do go, hit us up, because we tend to go to all the conventions now. They say it's the face of the company, of the industry, so we try to bring our faces there. So we'll be at E3, and great stuff happening for us over the next couple months. I'm not disclosing exactly the championships that we're rolling out this summer through E4I or Service Esports for Indie. On top of that, we're launching Indie Without Borders, which is our localization services. As we've talked, Zeno, we're excited about that and moving OP Noobs forward. You'll see a lot more shows on Twitch. Come check out the website, and please do support Zeno and the Little Green Man Games team. Get yourself a copy if you haven't. So, by the way, thanks for the giveaway, Zeno. It's awesome. I think we gave a ton of keys away in the chat. Thanks, people, for tuning in.
And some on Discord. I think some were
nice.
given in Discord.
They did.
congrats.
We are also thinking about Discord channel,
You should.
and I think that it's something
good.
that could help us.
You should, Zeno. It's changed how we work as a media site and as a Twitch platform. And when we see developers embracing if I may say, your game is perfect for it.
It puts you in touch with your community really well. It gives you one single forum to really reach out to them and let them have their own discussions.
Yeah, it's kind of the fantastic revolution, Discord. It's changing things. Again, thanks for the giveaways. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Come back next time. I don't know exactly when next time is, to be honest. I think we're scheduling quite a few dev talks for next week. If you guys have noticed, we're coming back on strong with the dev talks. Expect 2 to 3 a week, thanks to people like Oriana who are coming to host these. Thanks, Oriana. The monthly show,
Glad to be here.
The podcast, and all that good jazz. We call 2017 the Twitch year for us, and we mean it. Zeno, thank you again for everything you've done, all the support, and the game that you keep developing. Thank you for having me,
and thank you to my guys that were sorting the
chat.
in the chat.
Thank you, Mario, for watching. We'll be following up. Shortly, and we'll be following your game closely, Zeno. In the meantime, we wish you all the best. We wave goodbye, and we will see you guys
Bye.
next time.